All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to Your Mutha podcast. I'm really excited for today's episode because we're diving into a topic that's deeply personal to me and one that I know so many families struggle with. If you've been following my journey, you know my family spent years navigating autism, sensory processing, special education, behavior supports, and trying to understand what children really need when they're overwhelmed, not just at home, but in school and in the community. Today's conversation isn't about criticizing anyone. It's about learning from people who do this work every day and having an honest discussion about what trauma-informed care actually looks like, why behavior is often misunderstood, and how adults can better support children in crisis. Joining me today is my good friend, Corey. I'm so excited. Corey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, hello. My name is Corey. I am a certified peer specialist, also a parent partner. I have certifications in peer work as well as family crisis mitigation and family conflict resolution. I have worked with kids now in the system for 12 years. Originally starting working in group homes, then went to community based with both parents and kids in the community. And I am currently back in congregate care setting working with TAY kids, which are
That's
transition age youth.
that's awesome. Corey, thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Love to be here. So yeah, I mean, I was a kid that dealt with significant trauma growing up, and that trauma impacted my own behaviors and the way that I presented myself to other people, because it really went undealt with for a very long time. I wasn't really able to really focus on dealing with my own trauma and the behaviors associated with it until I was probably in my early 20s. By which point I was kind of behind the ball when it came to some of the milestones that my peers in my age group were hitting, and I decided that once I got through with my work and the work that I needed to do, that I would try to help kids get there sooner than I did. So I started working with youth that have similar trauma background histories and um, sort of the same similar presentations that I had.
So that's pretty awesome. One would say that you have a bird's eye view of the children that you work with. You can approach it from an understanding that maybe other people couldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you are really good at doing things that you know really well, right? And um, I know myself really well at this point, and I know a lot of the motivations and reasonings behind my behaviors that I had when I was younger. A lot of the decision making process that I went through, a lot of the lack of maturity, and then the process of maturing. Um, and a lot of the kids that I've worked with in my career now over 12 years, it's very similar.
That's awesome. Let me ask you a question. When you first meet a child who's struggling, what are you looking for before you ever think about even how to respond?
Well, you know, in the agencies that I've worked for, you usually get a referral sheet. It's got information from uh, whatever they've gone through as far as the system goes, whether they're in therapy and all that stuff. It's got all these notes, and I try not to look at any of them.
Mhm.
Personally, for me, I'd rather get to know somebody by talking to them. I'll get a few background details from those higher up in my agency about, this is sort of how it presents and this is sort of what we see. But I I don't look at the in-depth notes. A lot of the times you'll get a referral and what's on the referral will be very out of date, or the behaviors that it talks about might not be present
Mhm.
like they were maybe a year or two before. Um, a significant amount of the youth that I end up working with are kids that have been in the system for a very long time, whether
Yeah.
that's due to their own mental health, their own behaviors, or um, their parents weren't doing very well with parenting, and had their kids taken away from them, many times for very good reasons.
Mhm.
And so I try not to look into it. I try to go into the rapport building stage with an open mind and trying to get to know that where they're at currently.
So to be fair, you give them their own space to show you exactly what their needs are and let you build a bond with them before any predetermination or judgment comes into the picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think a lot of the peer work, becoming a certified peer specialist in Massachusetts is its own certification.
Mhm,
And peer work is a little bit different from um, mentoring, like traditional mentoring or therapeutic mentoring, which I've done both of those as well. Like
mhm,
I've in my career, I've worked in numerous roles on numerous cases. I was originally for the 8 years that I did community based. I was part of what they call a comprehensive team,
mhm.
which you work with uh, a case manager and a clinician in the home as well. So you have a 3-person team. We used to joke that it's like the special forces of community based services because you're getting 3 people that you're meeting with. The kid might be meeting with me and then the clinician and the family, twice a week for an hour. Um, or they'll meet with me for an hour, the case manager for an hour, and the clinician for an hour, just depending on what the needs of that particular youth is or what the family needs are. Um, and so it really was working like as a whole system.
That's incredible. And I feel like the way you approach the young children you work with is from such a special standpoint. And to be clear, Corey and I have worked together in the past, and I've gotten to see firsthand him in action and how he relates to these children and how he forms such amazing therapeutic relationships and makes such a huge difference in these kids' lives. Um, when it comes down to children with extreme difficulties that seem to trust you more than other adults, how important is the trust the children have in the adults that surround them, in your opinion?
Oh, it's everything. There's been a lot of times in cases where I've been the only trusted adult that these kids have trusted in years. And again, for good reason. A lot of them come from very difficult uh, upbringings and very
Mhm,
difficult, atmospheres and environments that they grew up around. A lot of kids that I end up working with have been, especially the older ones, have been parentified really young because
mhm,
there was no responsible adult in the home and they needed to be the responsible adult. And so, in a lot of ways, they are way more mature than
mhm,
their age, but in a lot of ways, they're not because they didn't really experience the normal milestones of childhood. Like
mhm,
you might miss out on all the playtime and the play dates and all these other things that you see from, more traditional nuclear families that don't have the kind of issues that these kids come from. So, yeah, I mean, it's absolutely massive, and building trust in the adults around you is, um, what we call, like, permanency. Like,
mhm.
it can be, um, me as the person providing service, but it could also be, like, a baseball coach, a football coach,
Yep.
music teacher in school, an art teacher, any kind of, educational professional can become those trusted people.
Mhm,
Um, and I think that that's a huge part of what we try to do is as a team, we try to build, um, community-based supports because like, inevitably, I am a limited service, right?
mhm.
Like, the service that I provide can go for anywhere from 3 months to a year. Sometimes it extends a little past, and, um, I wanna build the rapport and I wanna be that trusted person as much as I can, but I also wanna be trying to build that trust in other adults around them that have been identified as positive influences on them.
Exactly. And just so people understand, in the aspects of Corey and I working together, we did have an opportunity to work with these children. And once they do age out or leave the system, they are able to apply for what's called permanency. I heard you mention it.
Yeah.
Explain briefly what permanency is.
Yeah, so permanency is, a concept within our industry that is it really is kind of what I said. It's building, long-term supports outside of the system. So, the system will provide you when I talk about the system, I should explain that the system is generally like, depending on where you live, it's either DCF or Department of Family Services, DFS, DMH, which is the Department of Mental Health,
Mhm,
DYS, which is Department of Youth Services, which is sort of what the old juvenile justice system used to be.
mhm,
It's for kids that are, have committed crimes and are coming out back into society, or they could be pretrial for DYS. And also DDS, we've been seeing a little bit more uptick in like um, referrals for youth that are with DDS, which is Department of Disability Services,
mhm,
which it, I'm a little conflicted on because a lot of the times you're a little bit limited in what you can do with kids that are in DDS because
yeah,
of um whatever depending on whatever disability they have,
mhm,
accessing the kind of care that traditional community-based mental health services provide can be very difficult in those cases. And I think that there needs to be almost a new set of um I think you have it with ABA and stuff like that because a lot of the kids that
mhm,
are in DDS end up being somewhere on the spectrum.
yeah,
It's probably the most common DDS kid that we get is um, on the spectrum, and
mhm,
generally they're on the lower end of the spectrum,
yes,
um, with significant executive functioning delay, um, and so accessing traditional, like, dialectical behavior
services,
therapy
yeah.
or cognitive behavioral therapy can be very difficult for somebody who
Mhm.
has executive functioning issues. And
Exactly,
so
because the comprehension and in the way that the services are delivered, it matters the difference between the 2. It's like night and day kind of.
right.
Yeah. So joining us right now, Corey, I want to let you know 2 of our aunties are here, Auntie Angie and Auntie Christine. Guys, I know you've been sitting and you've been listening in to Corey and all of his amazing information. I just wanted
Hi,
to give the aunties
Corey.
an opportunity
Hello.
if they
Hi.
had a question, if you guys would like to ask Corey anything.
Yeah, I actually have kind of a two-part, and they're completely separate. So, with children, I have a 6-year-old, and we're kind of going through some behavioral issues. There is somebody that comes and does help, like to her school sometimes.
Mhm.
It's like through the school, but one thing that we're having an issue with is she has a little bit of a potty mouth. I've been finding now that she's picked up that like one word, it's like she won't stop saying it, and I don't
Mhm.
know. I've tried ignoring it, I've tried correcting it, and I'm just not really getting anywhere.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just say the word. What's the word?
That she called somebody.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Fair. So, and now I'm assuming she's saying it all the time to everybody.
Mhm.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, she uses it in the correct terms too, like when she's
Like in the right
irritated. It only
context.
comes
Yeah.
out yeah. It only comes out when she's irritated, but, like, she is saying that, like, it's not just your sometimes it's like your just
So the
anything, like
is her
yeah.
go-to trigger word when she's escalated, and you don't hear it
Yes.
any other time besides when she's dysregulated a little bit.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I truly do think it was from YouTube. I mean, she could have picked it up from a kid at school because I know I wasn't hearing it until she was going to school, but now I'm hearing it. So I don't want to put blame on wherever it came from, but where it came
Mhm.
from, I can't get it to stop coming.
So
Yeah.
before
I think however it was responded to initially was the trigger for her. Like, and
Mhm.
and now she's going to continue saying it because she knows that it's going to get a reaction, right? And I think the key is to obviously, I know you tried ignoring it, is not give it the reaction, and then when she's in a significantly better headspace.
Doesn't even do that with me. Like she doesn't do it at home. She does it,
just
I guess,
school
like
days.
at school when they're
Right.
frustrating her.
So
Okay, so I would definitely, this is what I would have the conversation with the school is like,
mhm,
you need to pick a time when you feel like she's going to be at her most receptive. Now we're talking about a 6-year-old. That is going to be a very difficult thing to gauge, but you know your kid better than anybody. Like
Right.
if you pick a time where you think that she's in like a really good mood, a really good headspace, a place where you think you can have like a informative conversation, a lot of what you can do is say like, "Hey, I noticed or I've been told that when you get really upset at school, you're using these words. What is it about those situations that make you want to use these words?" Like you kind of want to
amen.
figure out the motivation behind it, and then as the parent, as somebody she trusts and loves, you can say to her something like, maybe we can try using these words next time when you get frustrated, or you can even like, I think a lot of times kids, especially young kids, when they don't get it a lot from their parents, is like if you can like almost get on their level and say to them like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, like, you know what mommy says when mommy gets really upset or mommy gets really angry? Mommy
Mm-hmm.
says, "Oh, sugar snaps," or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
it
Yeah.
sounds really corny, but for someone that young, for a kid that young, like if you give them a little bit of you, right? Even if you don't use those words, like even if you don't say those things, like if it's something that makes them laugh, like even if it's like some stupid thing that you say that will make them laugh, like maybe they're going to be significantly more likely to start melding that into their daily vocabulary than they are with the reactionary stuff that they're getting from like and all this other
Right.
When it comes to my son, he has autism, and when he's dysregulated, he will part of his stims is he uses verbal stims. So he'll mutter to himself. And if he gets extremely dysregulated, he gets to a place where he uses the F bomb. And it happens only at school. So, same thing you're saying. I do not hear him swear at home. He doesn't do it out in the community. It's just when he's dysregulated at school. And I think what a lot of people, especially in schools and teachers, don't understand that when it comes to situations like that, sometimes behavior is communication. So if she's using that to express herself and communicate in that moment, it's almost like with my son, if you go back and touch base with him and say, "Hey, why did you swear while you were at school?" Sometimes he won't even recall he said it. So a lot of times adults react to behavior because it's bad behavior. But sometimes what they don't take into consideration is that behavior is sometimes communication, and it's their way of communicating. Not the best way to communicate, but sometimes it's just that, especially if you're only seeing it when they're escalated. Like she's not just sitting around circle time saying, you
Nope.
know what I mean? She's doing it out of frustration. So my best advice is to what's called find the function. So like when I worked with other people who worked in schools and I worked in an RBT position, the most important thing they teach you as an RBT is find the function behind the behavior. What is triggering her to that point to get that escalated? That's important. I totally agree with Corey. Corey is 100% correct that they will mirror you. So if you're just sitting there and telling them you can't swear, that's horrible, you can't use that language, or, that's a shame aspect, and it almost makes it taboo to them. And sometimes some kids will push back and do it more.
most kids that age group are going to do that. Like,
Right.
people love to talk about like the terrible twos and the awful threes. Like the reality is that kids are significantly more um like defiant
Mm-hmm.
when between the ages of like 2 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then after 8, their executive functioning in their brain, girls especially, start developing a lot faster.
Yeah.
Like boys, it might take until they're like 11, but like girls around the age of like 8 and like 10 will kind of break away from that defiantness, like that defiant phase of um the kids are contrarian. They're gonna be contrary to whatever the expectation is a lot of the time, especially now with like technology and the way that technology is so pervasive within, their lives and how integrated they are to just the online world at such a young age. We've noticed it a lot more. Like, when I first started in the field, most kids had flip phones. They didn't have like smartphones. But
Yeah.
like we've noticed that like the longer that the technology integration has happened and it's become more and more ingrained, they're
Right.
going to be more and more defiant. And so
Right.
you have to kind of meet them where they're at, right? And like instead of yelling or getting angry or being like, don't do that, don't say that, don't do
Or
this,
even
it's like,
shameful on it, like shaming them into that's not okay, because sometimes that can escalate it.
yeah. I mean, and I
So
think a lot of the times, like when you talk to kids, like if you give them like a good reasoning behind why you're asking them not to do something or telling them to do something, when they're older, it's a lot easier. When they're younger, it's a little bit more difficult. You have to kind of put it in terms and use language that they understand. But, um,
she had had
if you
a
catch them at the right time.
she had had a situation at school where so our therapist was going every other week at one point, and then they moved it to every week. So when
Mhm.
her therapist got there, the teacher and somebody else said, "Oh, like be aware." She was like, "She's acting out right now." And like they seemed really nervous, which I think was part of the problem, to be honest with you. And I don't
Mm.
want to put any blame on anybody, but when the therapist took her out, she asked her to lead the way, was able to regulate herself right there and led the way and showed her, and they had a great visit.
Yeah, you're
Um,
giving them agency. That's what we call giving agency.
Yep.
If you give a kid agency, they're going to 9 times out of 10, they're going to use that agency appropriately.
Yes.
yeah.
When you see the times where you see that they don't use it appropriately, it's like when they're super elevated and super escalated. Can I ask a
Mhm.
question though? Like, has she been referred for a neuropsych?
She's on the list for it. I
Mhm.
was
They take
told
forever.
that, the doctor, like, kinda sounded like she was gonna cry when she said it. She was like, "I hate this, but unfortunately, there is a private pay. You can pay $5,000, and
Yeah,
they
it's
can get
wicked
you in the
expensive.
next month." And I was like,
Yeah.
So
"Wow."
that is
So
common. That is
it's
very
it's
common.
criminal
When
is what it is.
my son waited 4.5 years on a wait list for a neuropsych, which anyone that doesn't know, a neuropsych eval is they basically evaluate them for multiple things. They're looking for sensory issues, they're looking for autism, they're looking for anxiety issues. It's kind of a full
ADHD,
eval,
all of those other things. Like
ADHD, all the
neuropsychs
things.
can often be like
Mhm.
you're gonna get your neuropsych back and be like, oh my god, this is my kid. Like
Yes.
because
Right.
and that's everybody that's ever gotten a neuropsych done. Like, and I'll
And
be
like
hand up. I had 7 of them when I was a kid. Like I
and
went through them every 2 years.
And for people who don't know, it's not just your child sitting in an office with a doctor and them watching them. It's a whole parent info packet that you fill out. There's rating scales in there. There's behavioral rating scales in there. It kind of gives you the opportunity as a parent to say, okay, this is what I'm seeing here. Sometimes if the child is school age, the school gets to complete the rating scale and let them know what they're seeing at school. So like at home, your daughter might behave ABC way, but at school she's EDFG. You know what I mean? So the neuro takes a look at not only the parent scale, the school scale, and then her own. So you're getting the view from all sides, basically. You're getting a wraparound. So it's such a thorough eval, but it's very hard because the wait lists are insane. In the
It takes
meantime,
forever.
your poor kiddo is struggling and supports can't happen until you have that neuro eval back.
Say though that the school really did something for me. So at the it felt like I was never getting anywhere because every
Mhm.
time the testing took so long for
Mhm.
her IEP. However, they are going to put her in like a special program where it's going to be smaller kids next year, and she has an IEP. So I'm very hopeful that there's also a BCBA that's her teacher, and
Uh-huh.
then there's a para for her. So
Is
my
it her
fingers
own
are crossed.
para, her own
Yeah, is she on a
one-to-one?
one-to-one?
Yes. Yeah, she has a
Okay.
one-to-one, and then she'll
Okay.
have guidance counselors. And the school said that their goal is to integrate her back into
Mhm,
to the elementary school once her behavior is worked out. I
mhm.
don't know where that's gonna take us. I really just want the best for her, so we'll see.
So at this point, what they're telling you is they're going to bring her into a smaller classroom with more support inside of it. Been there, done that. I'll explain it to you. They're going to bring her into a smaller classroom with services available to her at a smaller ratio. So everything's not so overstimulating and she gets more one-on-one treatment. They're going to teach her a lot of coping skills in there. So not only is she getting her normal education every day in a way that she can understand and is easier for her, but they're also going to work on her coping skills, her behavior, her socialization skills, her social cues, all the important things are going to be learned in that classroom. And at her age, it's so important that she gets that. And I know as a mom, your heart probably sank when you heard that she's going to a different class. She's not going to be with her classmates. I promise you, she will get there. She will catch up and she'll be right back in that general ed classroom. You're basically building the foundation of how she's going to be able to be in that gen ed classroom in a way that's happy and safe for her.
Right.
In the
And everybody.
meantime, on her IEP, I assume you've read her IEP front to back at this point.
Yes.
Okay. So the most important thing when they're taking her out of a general ed classroom and putting her in a special education room that you want to pay attention to is her goals section. In her goals section, you will see they want her to meet 75% by year end. Like they will give you a breakdown of what their expectations for her to meet by the year end is. You want to try to keep an eye on mid year. So it's not out of the ordinary to ask for an update mid-year and just say, where are we at with our goals thus far? And that'll give you a gauge of how well she's doing with the goals there are. If you see that she's like soaring above in one goal and it's fine and she's met it, but you'll also get an idea of where she's not. And that's where mid-year you guys can adjust those goals. You can go back to the table and say, hey, I think the accommodations and the stuff we're doing right now isn't helping us achieve this goal. What can we tweak? A lot of parents don't know. They think they get an IEP and they have to stick with that IEP. You don't.
It can be amended.
I think this is such an important time to tap in Cheyenne. Cheyenne has worked as an RBT. Cheyenne, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late. I was listening. You guys are all amazing. Kristen, I think you're doing an amazing job advocating for your daughter. I think that's the best thing you could possibly do. I think she's going to absolutely prosper from this, and it is going to help her tenfold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
We
excited.
kind of touched on behavior is communication, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself. So you've worked as an RBT, you've worked with children for like ever.
I did. Yeah. I've worked with children forever, from posting all the way to special education. I became an RBT. I did that for 3 years. Right now, I'm a toddler teacher who specializes with children on the spectrum. So I work with kids anywhere from ages like 2 to 7.
Cheyenne, with your experience working with children, being an RBT, what does it mean to you when you hear somebody say behavior is communication?
Oh my God, absolutely. All behavior is communication, whether they're having a tantrum and don't know how to use their words and throwing themselves on the floor or pulling somebody's hair. They want some sort of attention.
So you touched briefly on finding the function of a behavior, meaning instead of reacting badly to a bad behavior, you're supposed to find the function. Why is it happening? What's triggering it, correct?
Yes.
I think Angie had a question for you, Shy.
Yeah.
I didn't have a question. I was just going to feed into the levels, the ratings that you were talking about.
Oh, yeah. So go for it, girl. Tell them so. Go for it.
So we had early intervention come with 4 people. There was a physical therapist. There was some woman who was just sitting and listening and recording the whole thing. There was another woman who was asking specific questions about her motor skills and her communication. And then there was another woman who was just asking us personal life questions. So it worked on, they used what they called the Battelle rating system. So they score the children. I think it was up to 103, maybe it goes up to. But if you fall anywhere under a 77 on the scale of the 5 different sections that they have, they consider it a significant delay. And it will immediately qualify them for early intervention.
Okay. So when you say that you had, it was kind of like an evaluation you had, was that through like your pediatrician or?
So my pediatrician had brought early intervention to my attention because my 15-month-old daughter is not crawling, she's not walking, and she's not really using words and familiarity with things.
Okay.
So yeah, I reached out to early intervention. They came in and they did this whole evaluation of her home life, how her life has been for the past 15 months from birth until now.
I think what they're talking about, if I remember correctly, Cheyenne, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the Battelle development scale or inventory scale, correct?
Yeah, developmental scale, yeah.
Yep.
Developmental scale.
So with that, they're basically going through and they're evaluating her while she's sitting there with you. They're going through, they're rating what you're saying. They're taking down your answers. Did you fill out anything prior to, or is it just kind of in person?
No, it was all in person. It was a 2-hour visit, and it was very extensive from an outsider's point of view who doesn't have their RBT or any of those things. I work in car dealerships.
Okay.
So to
Yeah,
me,
so
it seemed like that scale was very specific.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's like the first of, I would imagine, many sessions that are going to come up, because does she now qualify for early intervention?
She does. She scored under a 77 in 3 of the 5 categories.
Right.
Okay.
So what they're going to do with early intervention does, and it can do really amazing work, but
Yeah.
a lot of parents find early intervention to be, there is no like secret keeping from early intervention. Like
No.
Right.
the reason why she was even referred in the first place is what they still call it this, but it's not really strength-based language, but it's considered failure to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
And there can be a million reasons for failure to thrive. Like it can be environmental, it can
Mm-hmm.
be cognitive within their own child. It can be it could have a lot to do with like occupational therapy type stuff where there's just lack
Mm-hmm.
of coordination. Um, the
Motor
speech thing could be like
skills,
the speech
fine motor
therapy type stuff.
skills,
Yeah,
speech and
fine motor skills, right.
language. Yeah. Social,
Yeah.
emotional, adaptive.
So, but what happens with early intervention is that like they're like detectives. They like
Mm-hmm.
figure out, environmentally, is your home set up in a way that allows this child to thrive? Like
Mhm.
the answer to that I know is yes. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've seen it.
I know you guys.
Ange, let me ask you something. Actually, Angie and Christine, because you guys both have been in a situation recently where you've seen firsthand what first steps and interventions and evals and IEPs look like.
Mhm.
When you guys sat down, when it first came to your attention that, early intervention was going to get involved or that your child needed an IEP, do you feel like you were taken aside, sat down, and explained the process of what they're doing and why they're doing it as a parent in a way that you could understand easily?
I have to say, the woman who sat and asked all the personal questions, she was very, very descriptive with everything.
Mhm.
She made me aware of why she was doing what she was doing. She made me aware of why she was saying what she was saying, why she was asking the questions she was asking. She did make it very clear for me, but I know that a lot of parents don't have that
Mhm.
same thing, like some parents go into this completely blind.
Mhm.
I'm lucky enough to have you guys all who are RBTs and have all been through it to know like
Yeah.
what the process is,
Yeah. And
Um
Christine, school age wise, what kind of explanation did the school give you and explain the process that they were going to do?
That's tricky because when my daughter was in preschool,
Mhm.
she had shown some signs because she was leaving the classroom a lot. And it was causing a lot of issues where they couldn't watch her and the kids, so we had to take her out. And they had started the process of doing an IEP, and they even had people go look at her while she was at like her camp
Mhm.
and like evaluate her while she was at camp. And
Yep.
when she started kindergarten this year, we were like couple weeks in and they said, this is a quote and I'll never forget it. It was, "We're not closing the book, we're just turning the page, we're just changing the chapter." And so I thought that we were like moving on to the next step. If she had any issues, it was just going to be okay, add on, let's continue on with the evaluation. But really, it was, we have to start from complete scratch.
Mhm.
And they
Yep.
did. And when I
Well,
tell
yeah, I
you,
was just about to say
they
that. Like both you, Christine
You
and
guys
Angie, you guys are both incredibly fortunate that
very lucky.
that you have the people that have
Held your
taken the
hand.
time to
Yeah.
help you, especially with the school system itself
yeah,
and the person that came for early intervention.
right.
Um, in our experience, and Rachel can speak a little bit more to this too,
Yeah.
but like in my experience, the last 12, 13 years that I've been doing this, um, that's super rare.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
it
sure.
it, more often than not, yeah, more often than not, it is not explained very well. It is not explained in layman's terms. It is not explained in ways that people can understand why they're doing what they're doing. Also, the fact, Christine, that the school was the one that like
Initiated.
recognized it and initiated it. Like normally
Mhm.
parents have to initiate that. And a lot of the
Right.
ways that parents have to initiate that is because they can't get neuropsych.
And Corey, correct me if I'm wrong. When we were working together, we saw how much faster the services came in for the children in our care because most of them were in state care at that point.
Yeah, some of
Versus,
them were partial, so there was like 50-50 custody with the state.
I don't find that I'm having like behavioral issues
Mhm.
that I think that might be perceived. She really just, when she's frustrated, she had that potty mouth that I told you about, and
Oh,
then she's kind of leaving.
your
Like,
daughter is the level that my son is at. So at home, you guys have all been in my home. You've all known my son since the day he was born.
Yeah.
There's never behavioral issues. There's no swearing. He's great in the community. He's great everywhere except for school. So that's why I
Right.
kind of relate heavily with you because, like,
Yeah.
I spend time with your daughter and I have a blast with her.
Yeah, she's a great time.
Yeah. So, like, and Angie, same with your daughter. I spend time with your daughter, and I'm just like, I look at those instances of like my son, and I'm just like, okay, like if it's only happening in a certain area, like with me and Christine, so it's only happening in a school system. My whole fight that I'm fighting right now is if it's not across the board and happening everywhere, how do I fix where it is happening? You know what I mean? And I feel like, Christine, your school is very proactive. They seem very much
yeah,
so on top of what they're doing.
it's great what they're doing. Honestly.
Yeah, like,
I have to give them their credit and their props because while I was going through it, it was very frustrating as a parent. I felt
mhm,
like nothing I'm doing when I'm not seeing these behaviors at home, like nothing I'm doing was working. But
yeah,
then, so I was a little defensive, I feel
yep,
like, and really they were trying their absolute best for her. And I do want to recognize that they went out of their way to make sure that, like, she adores her principal and had like one-on-one time with her principal because she just didn't want to be in the classroom so
mhm,
much. So
yeah. And that's how my son was. He had a very good relationship with the assistant principal. So, like, again, we're kind of like mirrors. I hear you and I
yeah.
see you. That's really awesome. And like the thing that you said that really caught me was you were defensive in the beginning, and I think Angie can kind of relate with this too. As a mom, it doesn't matter if your child's a month old or 20 years old. If somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, we see some issues here, we're going to need to address them." I think as moms, our first instinct is like our stomach hits the floor. And
Yeah.
it's not that you're angry at those people, it's that you're worried. And sometimes worried can come off as almost
Anger.
disgruntled and frustrated with them because you're like, what do you mean? I don't see that at home. That's so
Right.
totally normal.
That's when
Yeah.
you get into the whole mindset of like, oh, now we got to circle the wagon. You know, in my line of work, it's like, all right, identify what about this environment is causing
Amen.
this behavior, right?
Right.
Yep.
And it can be a person, it could be another kid, it could be they could be not understanding the schoolwork itself and they're getting to a place of frustration and that's giving them all kinds of anxiety, which is then, you know, displaying itself in the way that it's displaying itself.
Mm-hmm.
Um
The
and I think
stay and do your work, that could be too much. That could be overstimulation from lights, from loud kids.
Well,
There's
right.
so many factors.
And it's where we get into like caregiver affect management, which is like,
Mm-hmm.
all right. So this, I don't want to get too deep into it, but like caregiver affect management is like if a teacher is coming at your kid in a certain way that you wouldn't do at home, right? Like if they're, you know, I think we've all experienced. We're all older now. I think we've all experienced teachers that just like don't know how to talk to kids the right way.
Yeah.
Right.
And that could be a case, you know, that could be the case. It could be a parent that's not talking, you know, however it's being presented is not being received, right? Like whatever it is in the school. And
Could be
like,
Uh-huh.
triggering. Yeah.
right. And there's something about that environment. Now, I'm not saying it's always going to be caregiver advocate, like, but I would say 75% of the time, it has
Easily. Yeah.
something to do with the affect that's being presented to the kid, where they're like, they're feeling like they're in trouble or they're feeling like, you know, the shame aspect that we talked about earlier. Like, I think a lot of those things need to be addressed. And the problem is that systemically, it is very difficult to get a
Prove it.
teacher who's been a teacher for 20 years to change how they speak to kids or
Oh,
how they
100%.
approach a situation in class or you know, a lot of them can do a lot of alienating behavior, whether that's through tone or words or actions or whatever, that then further alienate a child into acting the way that they're acting. And I think a
Right.
lot of what Rachel's dealing with right now is a lot of that,
Mm-hmm.
because they have their thoughts and opinions made up about a child and they approach it one way. when they need to be a little bit more open-minded. And I think with the younger teachers, I don't know if your kids' teachers and stuff like that are younger, but it's a little bit easier now with younger teachers. When it comes to older teachers, it's very difficult.
Right. Her
Yeah.
teacher actually is pretty young. She was the most patient person I've ever met. I think I'd have to give her that because to 24 kids
Yeah.
and you're smiling every day, all the time, and they're genuine smiles. Like she wasn't smiling because there was like kids around. Like you could walk past her classroom and she didn't know you were walking by, and she was just smiling at the kids.
She's a
Yeah.
kindergarten teacher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
great.
the kindergarten teachers tend to be a little bit more happy.
Amazing. Yeah, they're great.
They need
Yeah.
to be.
Wait till you get to middle school and high school, then they start getting a little bit more miserable.
That's
right.
where I saw the difference. But to that note, my son does have two of his teachers are next level amazing and advocate so hard for him. And like one of them has a child of her own that has autism. So she understands on such a level that I don't ever have to worry about her with my son. She's amazing with him. She advocates for him. She sits in IEP meetings and advocates in a way that I know as a teacher. She probably got pulled into an office afterwards and said, you can't do that anymore. She did disappear from IEP meetings after that one, but I know I can't call her out by name, but I want to give her a shout out
It's
because she's amazing.
she wasn't fitting the narrative the school keeps trying to put out. Which
Exactly.
Exactly.
And like
you know.
there's another teacher that's a male teacher that, you know, he also comes from such a therapeutic, trauma-informed, understanding, like easygoing approach with my son that you're just like, this is how it's supposed to be. Like you pray for teachers like Christine's teacher. You pray for teachers like that. And I want to like tell you guys, because your babies are so little, that every teacher is going to be that way and every IEP meeting is going to be that way. If there's one piece of advice I can give you, and Corey can probably echo it from what we've seen when we work together, is not every meeting goes that way. And, and you do have to be prepared and know what your rights are and things like that. And I'm sure Cheyenne can speak to it, because when you work in RBT services, you know, you get a firsthand knowledge basis of what real services are supposed to look like, how they're supposed to be therapeutically given. Am I wrong, Shy?
No, absolutely. And I myself can speak to it. On the other hand, I'm a mom of two children, one of which is 5 and the other is 2. Just got one evaluated under EI. My other son was diagnosed with ADHD combined type. So he too has an IEP at school. So I've been through the ringer trying to get him that diagnosis, actually. But we finally got there. We finally came to a decision on an IEP and how we were going to help him. And we've had a few hiccups and tweaks here and there. But his school has done a really good job helping him through this. But I also have seen, on the other hand, how difficult it is for some parents and how hard it is on their kids when it's not done right.
Let me ask you a question, Shy, because I feel like you'll understand this because you too worked as an RBT like me. When you're sitting and you're seeing how they're trying to give services sometimes, and you have to advocate for your child, and you know what it's supposed to look like and what legally is supposed to happen, and you see it go the other way, do you feel like they almost don't listen to you more because they know your background?
Yeah, I do actually. I do feel that way. While I was at the IEP meeting, I was giving some information as to what I think would help him. He's got the wiggles, so a wiggle seat for him to sit down for 6 to 8 hours a day would be like perfect for him, right? So they kind of were like, "Oh, I don't know about that," because the other kids in the class. Yeah, like, well, I care about my son doing what he has to do for school.
Then he's legally entitled to that wiggle seat.
Right.
But they
And
don't
I have let
understand.
them know. I was like, I am an RBT. I do this for work. I know what he needs, and it works for him at home. And there was some backlash at that, but I think at the end of the day, I got what I wanted, and it worked out for him.
But you
Now,
Right,
do
and
go
as
into it expecting to not have backlash. Like
yes.
they should be listening to you.
Yeah.
You're the one who knows absolute best about everything about that child.
Yeah, yep, for sure. And
sorry, to play
no,
devil's advocate just slightly, like, I think that was a completely and utterly reasonable, thing
Request.
that you were asking for. Like, that was not an
Right.
unreasonable thing. I think
mhm,
it's really hard. So I'm not pro school in a lot of ways, but they do, there are parents that will come in there and demand, completely and totally unreasonable accommodation, right?
Mhm.
oh,
For their
absolutely.
kids,
Yeah.
right? And again, I want to be very clear that what you requested, especially for that age group,
Mhm.
Yeah.
is totally acceptable. It's like, hey, give him a place to go sit. Let him listen
Mhm,
to this tape. He's
mhm,
gonna come back within the next 10 minutes and be completely fine. Like, if that's what it takes to get him to into a place where he can learn and be educated, that is
right.
so reasonable, especially in a 5-year-old classroom.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
if this was like senior year of high school
Right.
and
That's
right,
different.
like that was
Absolutely.
right, like and he has to do finals, like a little bit different. But like there are parents that will go into these IEP meetings and they will and Rachel will tell you this 1,000%. They will make requests for
Crazy.
things that are just crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and the school has a right to say no, that's not a reasonable accommodation.
Mhm. No,
But like
absolutely.
once it's in your IEP, though, like
It's
I
there,
think it's
baby.
really important that you all as parents understand this, and Rachel gets this more than anybody. But
Mhm.
you guys as parents of young children is that when they have IEPs,
That's a
if the
legal
school is not
document. Yeah.
following through, that is a 100% illegal document. If they continuously do not follow through with it, you are entitled to fight it. There are many,
Due
especially in
process.
Massachusetts, there are a couple of
Department of
organizations that are
Education. Yep.
right, and there are a few, and I can send you guys these resources if you ever need them. Just reach out to me. But like, there are lawyers that work for free on IEP cases
In
because they do
Massachusetts,
it.
I should say.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, I'm sure that they exist in other places too, but there are like groups of lawyers that specifically take IEP cases and they do it for free.
Mhm.
And they will battle for you.
I think it's super important that every parent understands what their rights are under that IEP. The IEP doesn't just protect your child's rights. You have rights as a parent. I don't know if any of you guys have kind of read up on what IDEA is, so IDEA and FAPE.
Mhm.
Um, you know, the way I explain it is IDEA is the federal laws that protect your child, and FAPE is their entitlement to a free and appropriate public education. So those are the cornerstones of your IEP. Those are your protections. Those state all the rules and laws that the school must abide by when it comes to your IEP. And when it comes to asking for something as simple as a wiggle seat, that's fine. And if a school ever tells you we can't accommodate that because of the other kids in the classroom, everybody's going to want a wiggle seat. That that does not matter, because at the end of the day, if it's an approved accommodation, it's a protected thing inside the IEP,
Right.
meaning they cannot deny him an accommodation that's granted. And if they ever buck you back on an accommodation, you just have to prove how it helps him access his education, because again, it falls back into FAPE. If they say no and it's something that could make him be able to access his education and they're denying it, that's where your prior written notice comes in. So they have to, in writing, tell you why they're denying the accommodation, what legal remedies and rights they're using to do so. And even from there, you can go ahead and fight it from there. When it comes to accommodations, especially with like ADHD, autism, things like that, I have gotten a lot of pushback on things like pacing the back of the classroom. So part of my son's accommodations are that he has free range to pace the back of the classroom so long as he's doing it quietly. They fought me on that because it was, oh, that's distracting to the other students. Well, it's what he needs to do to regulate himself. So you need to figure out a way to work this accommodation in. And they did. But for a long time, it was he can't pace the classroom. He needs to sit. A lot of times what you'll find with schools is they're not looking for how to give your child his rights to his education. They're looking for compliance, meaning they want him to fit into the square hole. That's it. And they don't care. They want compliance. So inside your IEPs, very important in your language is if you're seeing a lot of language around so-and-so will sit still in class, so-and-so will do work on command. Though that is not accommodations, that is compliance-based. That's behavioral compliance-based. And that's not what IEPs are for whatsoever. That's a common thing you'll see with schools is they use the IEP in a way to try to force compliance versus give accommodations so they can access their education. Everything should be educational based, not compliance based.
Yeah, and I also think too, like, especially now that you guys, with your kids and they're young and they have access to the IEPs now, like, as somebody who had an IEP from the time they were 4 years old until I graduated high school, I think one of the things that my mother did, which was really, really important, was I was very well aware of what my accommodations were, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's hard to have these conversations with kids, but I think it's really important that they know what their accommodations were. So, like, for instance, like, my accommodations were if I was getting really upset in the middle of class and I was gonna, like, act out violently or I was gonna do whatever, like, I knew that I could go walk in the hallway, right? I could go out, I could walk for 10 minutes, and I can come back, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a pretty common one. Like, it's a pretty common accommodation that they put into these IEPs where it's essentially now they call it taking space. Mine was just
Mm-hmm.
like go for a walk or
Yep.
whatever it was.
That's a coping skill.
But like
That's a coping skill.
have these conversations with your kids in a way that they understand, like, hey, when you're feeling XYZ, here's what you're allowed to do. If at any point they're fighting the school or the teacher or whatever is fighting back on that, then you call a meeting because
Yes.
it's your right as a parent to be like, my child is aware of what they're entitled to under their
Mm-hmm.
IEP. Like, I think a lot of times parents try to hide the fact that their kids are on IEPs or there's some sort of stigma and they don't want their kid to feel like they're different or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I will sit there and tell you that I would argue nowadays 60% of the kids in school are on IEPs.
Mm-hmm.
So
Or 504s.
you're
Yep.
not alone. Yeah, or 504s,
Mm-hmm.
which inevitably end up leading to an IEP anyway. Almost every 504 leads to an IEP.
Yep.
Um,
And to go off of what Corey's saying, when my son was younger, you obviously don't want to sit a 6-year-old down with an IEP and be like, these are your rights. You deserve this. I used to call it stocking his toolbox. So I would
Yes.
sit down and I'd say, okay, here are the coping skills you're allowed to use. You frame it as a coping skill. If you're feeling agitated, you're allowed to take your space. You're allowed to go for a walk. You're allowed to pace the back of the classroom. So in that way, you're not exposing a younger child to adult conversation, because let's be honest, an IEP is an older conversation, but you're doing it in an age appropriate way where they know what their rights are and what they can and cannot do in that moment. But you're also at the same time stocking the toolbox. You're giving them coping skills that if they're in a moment, they're going to learn themselves, okay, I'm frustrated right now, I need to get up and walk away. They know they can. So
Right.
like that's so important for like Christine, your daughter's age. She's going to come to a point where she learns, I'm starting to get frustrated. I'm going to use this coping skill and walk out and take a walk rather than becoming explosive or being dysregulated.
I think it's great that all of this was brought up actually, because myself working in ABA for 3 years, thought it was just like common sense or like normal nature for somebody who has an IEP or somebody who is on the spectrum. I'm working with these kids and they're getting all the help they need. The whole time I'm with them, I thought as a mom with a kindergartner going into school, I don't even have to be like, hey, you have to, or this is your IEP and you can sit in a wiggle seat. I just thought that they would advocate for him and they
Yeah.
don't.
No,
I've had that conversation with him. Hey, is the wiggle seat helping you? What's a wiggle seat?
he didn't
So,
even know.
no,
Yeah.
they're not doing it. It is really, really important for them to know, hey, this is what you can do to help you at school.
Right.
Because
Mhm.
as much as nice and everything as they're being, they're not advocating like you think they are.
And
Right.
like that's the biggest letdown in that situation, because I mean, you guys have all now sat at an IEP table for the very first time as moms with littles. And I've sat at that IEP table so many times. I remember sitting at the first IEP meeting and going in there and thinking, oh my God, I have a whole table full of people who are here for my kiddo, who are going to advocate for my kiddo. I'm not
feels
fighting this
great.
alone.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't want to pee on the parade, but the fact of the matter is the further you get into this journey, you're going to learn who at that table is actually there for your child and who is not. So like Cheyenne said, it's so important that they know, hey, I'm supposed to have this wiggle seat. And if Cheyenne's communicating with her son, hey, how did your wiggle seat go today? Cueing and open conversations like that allows him to say, hey, mom, I didn't get my wiggle seat today. Why didn't I get my wiggle seat? I'm supposed to have it. That's a parental checklist of, okay, he didn't get it today. And so many of those, Cheyenne's going to come back and go to the school and be like, so-and-so has told me he didn't get his wiggle seat for the last 9 days. Why are we not doing this? It's in his IEP. So important.
I didn't actually go in feeling super confident with the IEP meeting. And the reason why, so I brought my mom, so I was confident, but I felt that I needed to bring her because I've
Yeah.
sat at the IEP table as the kid,
Yes, me
because
too.
I've always been in IEPs, and I've had good teachers, but I've also had situations where it's like my organization was the death of me. I used to have to go to my guidance counselor and organize my backpack every single day because I would just throw papers in. And so I would even do the homework so much as to not give it to them the next day.
Yeah.
And like my mom did the homework with me. She put it in my folder and she made sure that I got there. But
Yep.
what happened after, who knows? And
Yeah,
that's what she would be
exactly.
telling the people. So I was worried when I got to the IEP table, but they did explain everything to me. I didn't, but we haven't had time to utilize the IEP so much yet because it finished in May. So I didn't even
Okay.
think to stack your toolbox. I didn't even know that. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to know that. Thank you.
Best tool ever. And like, again, not only are you teaching them their coping skills and stacking their toolbox, you're also opening up that conversation between you and them where they're comfortable to say, hey, mom, I didn't get this today, or this is what happened to me today. You do not have eye in the sky and can watch your child all day long. The most important thing that you'll ever teach your child, especially an IEP child, is how to communicate back to you what happened when you weren't with them that day, because they're the only people that really can tell you the true story. You'll get updates from teachers and therapists and things like that. But the reality is nobody will tell you more honestly and more directly than the child that sat there all day, because it's their feelings and how it made them feel. And that's another important thing, is always have the open communication of like, what worked for you today, bud? When I get in the car after I pick the kids up off the bus, I always say, how was your day, bud, to each of them individually. And I always take notice of the first thing they tell me. That was the most important thing in their day because it's the first thing they thought to say to me. Well, so-and-so did this today and I didn't like it, but this happened too. Those conversations with your kids are so important because it gives you as a parent an idea of what's going on behind the scenes, that if that's not open, you're not going to get that. You're just going to assume, hey, he got everything he needed. He didn't say anything. So always ask the questions and always have that open communication where they can communicate freely with you about it. It's crazy.
I think these things are really important to talk about. I'm glad we're all talking about these things because I'm sure there are people listening that are going through this in a very different way and experiencing it in a very different way. It feels like, Cheyenne, I know for you, it feels like you're kind of like in the middle of sort of what we've been talking about, where like the school is not approaching it in the way that like Christine's school is approaching it. You know what I mean? And like Christine's school, honest to God, sounds incredible. Like the fact that they've done what they've done and they were the ones to initiate and everything, like that is so rare. And then Cheyenne's having to have a little bit more of a battle, and
I'm in World War III.
Okay, you're in World War III.
Yeah, quite actually.
And Cheyenne's like in the middle of that all, where it's like, fortunately, I know Cheyenne, and I know Cheyenne is not going to stop fighting for her kids, but like
Never.
parents get really, really exhausted. Like it is exhausting
Well,
to
Core, touch on like parent burnout. Like that's a very real thing when you have children that are on IEPs and on 504s and special needs in different areas. What is parental burnout when it comes to
yeah,
that?
I mean, when you care for an individual as much as a parent cares for their children, you're inevitably going to reach a point of mental burn. You're gonna be emotionally exhausted. You're going to, the system is weighted, right? It's a weighted system that's not weighted in your favor 90% of the time, unless you know your rights and you educate
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Like you as parents of kids that have IEPs and that are going through, issues, um, you really do have to. You're essentially going back to school. Like you have to relearn or learn all of these things that are not taught to you when you're in school. So like, I the only reason that I am where I'm at right now is because my mother literally went back to college and got a psychology degree to like help me. like
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is, it sounds crazy, but I'm being dead honest. Like
Yeah.
she went back, got a degree in psychology, and and a lot of it was to better understand like how could she support me. Like most parents don't have that luxury, don't
No.
have the
No.
time or the ability to go do that.
Your mom's the queen for
I was
that.
gonna say,
I,
Queen mama.
I absolutely believe that because I myself, along with Angie and Christine, I was working in that card business industry and I was making bank. And then my son at age 2 had a complete speech regression and he lost all
Uh-huh.
his words.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then from then, I took a liking on RBT and I went back to school, and that's where we're at right now. So, yeah, seeing my son go through that, that was immediately like, okay, this is what I have to do. I have to learn for him. I have to learn for myself, and we need to help him.
And you found something that you're really good at because you learned it and you understood it, and you were doing it for your kid originally, and now you're doing it for other people's children.
That's
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right. And it's amazing. And to see the difference that doing it the right way makes
Yes.
it's just amazing.
And
yeah.
like on that, when you see what I call the other side, so when you've worked with individuals, I haven't just worked as an RBT, I've worked with Corey when I worked in the group home setting as a therapeutic direct care counselor. I've worked in programs where it was an autism life program. Basically, we were teaching them life skills to go on and live independently. So when you have those tools in your own toolbox, it almost prepares you in a better way to help your child. So, like with Corey's mom, she went back and got the degree. She understood on a completely different level. I find that because I have those tools, I sit at that table or I read that IEP in a completely different way. And Shai, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like sometimes you can spot how schools will try to go one way and expect you to sign on the line blindly, not knowing, hey, that's not a real accommodation. It's not written correctly. Therefore, it's not enforceable. That language is subjective. It's
Oh,
not going to be
absolutely.
enforced.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I even doing this for so long, I kind of went in there blind because I've never been to an IEP meeting for my son. I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
to expect and I'm by myself and at the meeting I feel kind of rushed and I'm like, "Hey, let's tone it back a little bit. Let's slow
Yeah.
down." It's because yeah, they do try to make it seem less than it is and it's the
Procedural.
most important thing you can do for your child.
Yeah. And like I preach it from the rooftop. I know I've said it to all of you a million times. Prepare, prepare, prepare. I know I've drilled it into everybody's head. You should have all the documents. You should have all the records. Make sure you guys know what an OCD queen I am and my binders and the color coding and the cross referencing and this eval versus this eval. It gets to a point where I sound crazy to people that have never sat in my seat. I like to say that all the time. To outside people, it looks crazy when I walk in there with my color coded binders. But as an IEP mom, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this yet, but understanding what you're sitting down to at that table is so important. It's decisions that are going to affect the way your child's day goes every single day. So there are some parents that don't understand that. They go in there and they have the mentality of everybody's here to be with me and on my team and they care about my child just as much as me. No, they don't. there'll be some at the table that care, like I said, but there's other ones that it's all just procedural. It's another paper to shove in the file and move on.
Bureaucracy.
You are so in charge of your child's future. And that's not just as a mom, like that's as the person sitting at that table, you are representing your child until they're old enough to represent themselves.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you're going to disagree. And I say it a million times over. Advocating for my child is not me arguing with you. I'm advocating for my child. We can disagree all we want, but at the end of the day, nobody has my child's best interest at heart more than I do. I am their mother. I am their parent. So like, when it comes down to seeing you guys with the little kids and you're just starting this journey, and I know I try to hold back sometimes with you guys because I almost don't want to scare you or scar you, but like Shy, you've sat on the other side of the table for a lot of instances where this is your first time sitting as a mom. But like, I don't say these things to speak badly about the schools, speak badly about the systems. I say these things because it's a lived experience on both sides of that table that I've had to go through. And I have an almost 13-year-old. My world is completely different than a 5 and 6-year-old who are new into this. And I would rather tell you the harsh truth and prepare you to walk into that battle than just say, it's going to be great.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. Like, I don't think you guys should be like, I will say it does get emotionally exhausting for parents, and I see it all the time. Like, but I also have 13 years of working with kids that are between the ages of 6 years old and 22 years old. Like, I run the gamut. So I've seen some
all
things.
aspects.
I've seen everything. Like, and I've sat in between 200 IEP meetings in my career, and I have seen the other side of it, and I've seen great, incredible, awesome moments. I've seen really, really tough cases, and I've seen great teams at schools, and I've seen horrible teams at schools, and it really is hit or miss, and depending on what you're going to get. And the more resistance you get and the worse it is, the more emotionally exhausted you're going to get. But like, it's okay to get emotionally exhausted and admit that you're emotionally exhausted. Like, that's when you reach out to like me, or you reach out to Rachel, or you reach out to a therapist or whatever, like whoever you feel like is your best support that can like just talk you through it and be like, girl, like, yeah, it's good. Like, we get it. You're exhausted. You have every right to be exhausted. Like,
and like, not only just reach out when you're exhausted. I know when even as moms, we all had that aha moment where we've looked at our child and we've said, he's not progressing this way. His motor skills aren't correct. This doesn't seem right. We all had that moment, and I don't know if you guys can speak to it, where it's almost like a panic attack of like, oh God. And like, that is probably the most lonely moment you'll ever have, where you're having to admit to yourself that I need help for him or her. And a lot of times people don't even say anything to the people around them, and they kind of hold that in. And it's such a scary moment as a mom. And almost like if somebody else brings it up to you and says, hey, how's this going? Are you okay? Most moms are like, yeah, he's great. He likes to sit in the corner like that. Like, there's so much shame involved in like speaking about like, hey, he's really struggling with this today. And like, I'm so blessed because you guys have never been like that. You guys have come to me individually and said like, hey, what do you think of this, this, and this? And like, every time another person comes to me on that level, I have that same aha moment for you where like my gut drops for you and I'm like, is she okay? I care if you're okay. So always feel free to reach out to me. Even if you're sad, you want to cry about it, you want to yell about it. You know me, I will pick my phone up at 3:00 in the morning for any of you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is hard to, I mean, we have really great friends and people who are understanding and educated. So you guys are great and so easy to talk to, but there are people like, what's wrong with him? Why is he acting that way? There's something wrong. And there's nothing wrong. So it's really hard to talk to anybody really when there's this huge stigmatism around neurodivergency, and it's hard to speak with anybody about.
And you're gonna get that a lot from like older relatives.
You're
gonna get that a lot from people who
back
like
in my day, we just did this, and they
right, because it wasn't understood. It wasn't like classified, and like even in the time that we've been alive, you know, you used to have everything was broken down, right? Now we know it's a spectrum, but it used to be broken down of, oh, that kid's got Asperger's or that kid's
Mhm.
got this. Like that doesn't exist anymore. Like
No.
now it's a spectrum, and it's where do you fit on that spectrum? And so even in our own generation, things are constantly shifting and changing. The older generations have no concept of
None. Half of them, you
what a
look at
kid that
them
is
and you're
struggling
like,
like this
you
has.
definitely are autistic. Like, there's been plenty of like boomer generation people that I'm just like, oh, records are your special interests and you have walls and walls of them in your house. Totally normal. Totally, totally. Yeah, you can't understand what's wrong with my
I want
kid.
to say
I'm
to anybody
dead.
that's listening to this too, like I realize we are all very fortunate to kind of like know each other, and like we do know people that we can reach out to, and you guys obviously know you can reach out to me, and I can reach out to Rachel, and Rachel can reach out to me, and God knows she does.
Yeah.
God knows she does. But like you know, I have no problem doing that, but like people that are listening to this might not have that kind of like support
Hmm.
system, and I do want to
Right.
say that there are incredible groups out there that you can join, and they're all like you know, it's all like lived experience groups that exist that you can like search for on the internet.
Hmm.
If you just google parent support groups, you're going to find
Yeah.
hundreds of them that you can join. Most of them are virtual,
Yes,
some of
even
them are in
Facebook
person.
groups.
Facebook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facebook is amazing when it comes to that.
Amazing. Yeah, there's amazing support groups on there for
and so
literally everything.
parents need to build up their own community.
Yeah. You guys, that's the big thing is like you guys, it's such a lonely position in the beginning that you don't realize that there's such a community out there and there's thousands and thousands of other moms and dads and kids that like you can touch base with. I'm part of a lot of amazing Facebook groups too. Ange, thanks for bringing that up.
You're
Um,
welcome.
there's meetup groups. So like if you want your kiddo to be able to go have play dates, like you can go
Right.
ahead and meet up with other mamas that are in the same boat as you. And now your kiddos are hanging out and you're forming that bond with them. And it's so important if you don't have the direct support of friends and family to reach out somehow. I don't care if it's Facebook, I don't care if it's an online group, anything at this point. So, so important.
Yeah, it's very important to have a support system for anything,
Yeah.
really.
And like I almost feel like sometimes people are afraid of like online support groups because let's be honest, there's some grumpy pumpies out there that will always, oh, well, you
Sure.
just need to teach your kid better manners, da 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 da. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
that's
that's
not
not
the
reality.
situation. Yeah.
But like again, that block button exists for a reason. Don't
Yeah.
count
Mhm.
out a whole group because of one bad tomato. It just
You,
is what it
you
is.
can post anonymously if you're nervous about
Yeah.
people judging you or your situation or your child, especially your child.
Yeah.
And
But
I would also caution too, like I think on these pages, especially like the public Facebook groups and all those sort of things, even the private ones that have thousands and thousands of members, is like you're gonna have people that are spitting to you like their ideologies, right?
right. Mhm.
You're gonna have people saying like one extreme or the other. Like you as a parent should be looking at balance in all things, right? Like
Mhm.
if somebody is telling you that you need to look into gentle parenting, like
Yeah.
gentle parenting does not work. Like
Right.
it is
No,
objectively one of the
no.
worst things that like the one of the worst theories of parenting that
Gen
exists.
Z. Yeah. I'm
And
just
it
gonna
and
say
it
Gen Z. I'm just gonna
and
leave it at that.
it is very dangerous to the child.
Yeah.
Like to the point of they are going to have a schism with reality at some point because they
Hmm.
were raised a certain way with this gentle parenting stuff that when reality hits them in the face, it is going to be
Yeah.
I mean, I see it. I have seen it over and over and over again. Like it is you are now dealing with an entirely different monster. But you're also going to have people on the other side being like, you need a consequence and you need to do this and you need to do that.
Hmm.
You need to do blah, blah, blah. So like, it's not just the whole gentle parenting stuff, but it's also, you get the people that want corporal punishment back and they want
Yes.
this and they want that. So like, if you're in groups and that you find that it's being populated by
Yucky.
people
Yeah.
that are one extreme or the other, find another group
Yeah.
Oh
because
yeah.
you know, there needs to be balance in all things and consequences need to fit the action. And you know, I think a lot of times with males, dads always want to be the one like, oh, take the iPad from him for a week. Well,
Yeah.
that kid's not going to remember what he did 5 hours from now, never mind in a week.
Yeah.
Like it's just not going to work. Like you have to have balance in all things. And I think that that's really important if you're going to go into these groups and you find yourself facing one extreme or the other, like that's not what you want to go with.
Yeah, it all boils down to what works best for your child
Right.
anyways, so
Right.
and go ahead. You're just going there for opinions. I mean, you're
Hmm.
not strictly taking their advice, you know?
Right. Right.
And like the biggest thing that I find about some online communities is you'll have people that come in there and they pretend like they know what they're talking about, and like they'll give you really bad advice. So like
Oh
I
yeah,
watch
confidently bad advice with their whole
confident
chest.
bad advice. So I was in an autism group on there, and there was an RBT in there discussing ABA therapies and how, like, she was an RBT. She doesn't believe in ABA therapy, which is perfectly fine. Like, I've sat on that spectrum of that. I was an RBT. I believe ABA has some good points to it, but I don't wholeheartedly think it's the best fit for my child. Again, if you meet one child with autism, you met one child with autism. What works for one isn't going to work for the other.
100%.
But I watched this woman who claimed to be an RBT basically trying to give medical advice out. And I'm like, honey, you do not have a doctorate. You're not a doctor. Don't do that. And like, there
No,
were
you
parents in
literally took
there.
a $30 test online.
Yeah. Or you
A
did
free
your required
Facebook quiz.
180 minutes. Like, literally, you did your 180 minutes and you did your supervisory with the BCBA. Like,
It's
let's
like
be
those
real.
people. It's like those people that be like, I took my Myers-Briggs and I know exactly who I am.
God. So like, you have to be wary about where you look for advice almost.
You
Like,
do.
you have to be careful of, because like somebody could tell you, oh my God, go into your next IEP meeting and rattle off 10 chapter laws that they must follow. Cool. You can memorize the chapter codes, but are you going to be able to word for word spit back what each of those are? No, then you're going to look stupid. Don't do that to yourself. If you're not
Right.
educated in it, don't give advice on it. Please, please.
Right.
I mean, it's so nice to have everybody here because I feel like we have such a variety. We have from toddler to pre-K to kindergarten to middle schooler.
Yeah, we do.
You guys kind of covered all the bases. I appreciate you guys being here so much. And like, I feel like this is such an honest, open, communicative thing that like so many people can relate with. If you guys could give advice, we'll go one by one. If you guys could give any advice to a parent out there who is struggling with a child has some developmental delays or is on an IEP, what's the advice you would give them? Ange, I'll start with you.
Of course you are. Patience is key.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely with your child. Be so patient. It could take a long time to get to where you need to be
Mm-hmm.
with them, and learning and listening and reaching out and finding those resources that work for you and your family. Just have patience with it. It takes time, but you're going to get there. You can't sit here and be angry or upset about the situation. You don't have time for that.
Yeah. And
You
like,
know?
don't forget to have patience with yourself as a parent. I think that's important too.
Yeah.
Because you matter. You know what I mean?
We do too. For
Yep.
sure.
All right, Miss Christine, we're going in order as I see you. Miss Christine, what's the advice you would give to an IEP parent or a parent of a child with differences?
To be honest with you, I want to lead into they struggle at school and they have such a hard time, or they're having a long day. Whatever the day is, it's a long day at school, even
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have any issues. So when they come home,
Mhm.
try to make sure that energy is positive and that they're having fun and they're playing and they're getting their energy out the way that they should, because they've been cooped up for 8 hours.
That their
I
safe
love
space is
that.
home.
That
Yeah.
safe space. That's so important to me. You're their safe place. You're their happy place. I love that, Christine. That's amazing. All right, Miss Cheyenne.
I would say, like, please, please, please always advocate for your children.
Yeah.
I know it seems like so silly, duh, I'm going to advocate for my kid, but it's so much easier said than done.
It is.
Do it. Go talk to who you need to talk to, the principals, the doctors, the teachers, advocate for them. If they're telling you something, figure it out, get it solved, do it now.
Yeah, if you're concerned, it's a valid concern. Your concerns are valid. Always.
And like the best part of that is a lot of people are like, well, they make me feel like I'm crazy and I'm afraid to speak up.
Right.
Guess what? I'm not here to make friends. I have plenty of
No.
friends. I'm here for changes, not friends. Like,
Right.
oh, Mr. Corey, what's your advice for parents dealing with IEPs?
Yeah, look, I think it kind of goes back to sort of what we were talking about earlier, but I really do think like you don't have to do this alone. Like there are um things out there that can help you. I think, we all know of women that are in situations where it's like a single parent or they don't have the support of a partner. But if you do happen to be in a relationship where you have the support of your partner, or you have a decent relationship with your child's father, like bring the males in as well. Like they may
Yeah.
seem like they're completely disinterested, but like you need to make them interested because it
Yeah.
shouldn't just be on you. Like moms are always going to be the fiercest fighters for their kids. It's just the natural order of things. I think it's just the way that the human brain is wired, especially mom brains. Um, but dads and partners and stepdads and whoever like need to be involved as well. And like this should not be a that's a woman's job to take care of that. Like that's not how this works.
Oh
Like
no.
that's not how this works. Like and if you don't have a male partner, maybe a grandfather or anything. Like you have a different person in there that you can bounce stuff off of.
Perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, have somebody that can at least be supportive to you, right? As the parent, they may not understand anything that's going on, but they can understand that you're frustrated, right? So
Yeah.
they can support you. And also, like, if that's not the case and that's not something that you have in your life, then it really is just going out in the community and finding those community supports that can help you and support you.
Yeah.
We all have each other, and we're very, very fortunate. We're very lucky to have that.
100%.
We know how privileged we are to have that.
Yeah.
And I think that finding that support is like the biggest thing I would say. And never stop fighting. Like
No.
Never stop fighting.
Never stop fighting. We won't even call it fighting. Never stop advocating because, again, advocating is not arguing.
No.
All right, guys. So what we're going to do, we're going to rattle off some questions, give you guys the opportunity to answer them. If you feel like it's a question you can answer, feel free to do so. If not, let me know. All right. So this one's probably going to be geared towards Shy because it's an RBT based question. Can an autistic child look fine on the outside but be in complete sensory overload?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I hear this all the time. And that's another thing, the whole stigmatism behind like, oh, well, they don't look autistic. That doesn't make any sense. Even myself, I can look fine on the outside and be completely overwhelmed with anything and everything I'm doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. They can look perfectly fine and happy and dandy, and they could be completely overwhelmed. And for somebody who is on the spectrum, it's so much harder for them to tell you, hey, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. So sometimes it is hard. Like, yeah, you look fine and happy, but I know that it's very overwhelming.
And like we learned a lot, I know in our RBT experience, we learned a lot about masking. And when autistic children are masking, that basically means that they've been forced into compliance and they just hide their anxiety and their dysregulation. And that's one of the big things that I try to explain to people is so unhealthy. Like you see a lot of schools push for compliance and that's bad behavior and don't do that. You're literally traumatizing my child by teaching him that masking is the only thing that makes him acceptable. And that in itself triggers meltdowns and dysregulation because at some point, I always used to tell people it's like pouring hot coffee into a cup. At some point, it's going to overflow and burn you, correct? That's what masking does to kids. So like, again, they can look completely fine on the outside, but in reality, they're just masking it. They've taught themselves it's a trauma response. It's a coping skill that's not a good one. And it's so beyond toxic. And like, I feel like that's a lot of times what you see a lot of autistic parents of autistic students fighting is that when you push the compliance and the behavioral stuff on them so much, you're not teaching them how to cope with it and how to deal with it. You're teaching them how to hide it. so beyond unhealthy. I can't even.
Absolutely.
And then let's see. What's the biggest difference? Corey, this one might be for you. What's the biggest difference between managing behavior and understanding behavior?
Yeah, managing behavior is literally like you're going straight to the end of a book, right?
Mhm.
And you're not reading all the chapters ahead of it, and you're just reading the ending, and that is going to get you nowhere because you have zero understanding of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
You need to look at what is the motivation behind this behavior, what is causing this behavior. Um, you know, a lot of times you're not going to get very straightforward answers. It could be 6 or 7 things causing one reaction, right? But identifying those things and then addressing those things one at a time in a way that works for your family and your kid and your child, um, that's how you're going to effectively treat a behavior.
Yeah. And like piggybacking on that, I I see common mistakes, and Shai, you can probably talk to this because you've probably seen it too, even with your own son. I see common mistakes where adults think they're coming from a therapeutic approach and they're actually escalating the child further. And like, as much as you try to explain to them, they're like, well, I learned it in college and they told me that this is what helps de-escalate it. Is it common for you guys to see, Cheyenne, especially in the schools you worked in, where sometimes the therapeutic approach was actually more harmful than helpful?
Yeah, and also every child is different. What works for one doesn't always work for the
Mhm.
next. So
Mhm.
just because it worked for Timmy doesn't mean it's going to work for Tommy.
Yeah, exactly. And like, this can be a question for the whole group because I feel like everybody can kind of touch on it. Can repeated feelings of not being understood change how a child views school altogether?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've already had my son come home and he's had a bad day at school, or he's had something has happened and it just keeps happening and happening. And he comes home, I don't want to go to school today. This is
Mhm.
going to happen again. I don't want to keep doing this. He's in kindergarten already feeling like that. So, yeah.
Christine, have you seen that yet where she's like, I don't want to go to school today, or like she's anxious about it?
Yeah. When things right in the heat of like as we were trying to get the IEP diagnosis, um, things were a little rocky with her, and she just said, I want to stay home. I want to be with you. I want, she would say, I want to hug you. I want to cuddle with you, mom. I don't want to go there. And
Mhm.
she
Oh,
knew that I want to hug you. I want to make things better, but
Yeah.
we can't miss school. We just
Yeah.
need to like work through what's going on. And can you tell me what's going on? And we would go from there.
Right. That's a good one. And that's so heartbreaking as a parent because you know that they're begging you to stay with you because you're the safe place, you're the happy place. And like, you almost feel like you're sending them off to be like tortured in a sense. Like, you're like, I know you're going to be sad for the school day, like, and a lot of like my guilt came from I can't keep him home with me because he'd be truant. He wouldn't be getting his education. But like, it's almost like our own version of like parental guilt of like, I know you're not happy there. I can't change that right now, but I legally have to send you there. You can't explain that to a baby. You know what I mean? You're just like,
mhm.
buddy, you got to go do it. You got to like kind of muster through it.
Well, what
That's
actually really hit me was I found out at the very end of her school year, and I'm after her IEP was done, that kindergarten in Massachusetts is not really technically mandatory. And
no.
I thought it was. So I feel as though she went through a full year where she wasn't ready
Mm-hmm.
to be, not that she's not, because she can hang out with kids, like she does good at cheerleading. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's the structural, like, we have to do this.
Compliance. Yeah.
Yes.
I
Expect
think it's great
compliance.
though that you did send her though. Like it might not be mandatory, but she did. I'm sure she learned significant amounts of things.
And
Like,
she's gonna benefit for first grade. They put
Right.
that program in place for her.
Absolutely.
mhm.
Everything
And you
worked
got to
out.
jump on it. You're
Yeah.
you're one step closer than you would have been if you kept her home for the year. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
Exactly.
like,
100%.
kudos to you for doing that because I know you're the same way about your babies that I am about my babies. Like, you were like, I don't want to do this. Like,
Right. We're going to figure this out.
Yeah, literally. And like, it's such a tug of war of like, well, she doesn't have to go to kindergarten. I could keep her home. But like, if you had, look what you would have missed out on. She wouldn't be where she is at the IEP level. She's already got that rock solid for next year. So like, you're already like leaps and bounds above most kindergartners. You're already on the list for the neuropsych eval. Like, that's so important because those steps take so long. And like, the longer that you wait, the longer she goes without, you know what I mean? So I'm proud of you, girl. That I know that was a hard thing to go through and deal with, but you did it. And I'm just proud of you, mama.
And
I can't.
I really have to say that, like you guys said, like I had the support system. Like my best friends are all in this, and like they all know my daughter, and they all support her and see her and validate me too. Like they let me know, like, you're a good mom. Like don't hold this against you. And they've said it to me multiple times.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you guys have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like that goes back on. So when we went camping last summer, I got time to spend time with your daughter, and like, I adore her. She's my little buddy. She's my little partner in crime. And like, I could see her struggling a little bit. And like, it's almost hard when you're coming from like an auntie perspective versus like an experienced person who's worked with other children. Cheyenne, you guys can probably all speak to this where like you have that background and you see this kiddo.
Yeah.
I didn't have any issues with her because I approached her with that therapeutic knowledge in the back of my head. I was like, she behaves perfectly. What? Like,
Yeah, right.
you know what I mean? I'm like, we built sandcastles for 2 hours. What are you talking about? Like, but like, I feel like sometimes when you have that kind of circle around you, your kiddo has 10 legs up on the game because she's already surrounded by people that have that experience and have the ability to say, okay, we're not going to do that right now. Let's think about this. Whereas like any other group of friends, they'd just be like, your kid's throwing rocks at the other kids. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a privilege to be surrounded by the people we're surrounded by. It's such an accepting circle. And like, sometimes I won't see something as a parent and you guys will be like, did you just see what he did? And I'm like, what are you talking about? What did he do? Like, you know what I mean? What did I miss? So like, I feel like, again, we're very, very fortunate on a lot of fronts when it comes to all of our kiddos. I feel like our kiddos have like the ultimate leg up on a lot of things.
They really do.
Yeah.
I also want to add on to that like, it is okay to not know what to do.
Yes.
I find myself with my children not knowing what to do like 500 times a day.
Same.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I have kids with some pretty good behavioral issues. I am like, I have no idea what I'm doing. What am I doing? So it's okay.
And I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah, no, it's okay not to know what to do.
Yeah.
You
and
will
like,
figure it out.
Even if you have the circle we have, sometimes nobody in the group knows what to do. And we're all just kind of blind leading the blind. But like, I almost feel like sometimes we can put our heads together and between all of us, we're like, okay, well, this is good for this and that's good for that. And let's find a middle ground and like see what works for your kid. Like,
that's why it's called it takes a village. Like it really does take a village.
Literally, I love my village. I love you guys.
Aww, we have a good village.
We do.
And I will just say one thing too. Like if you're a parent struggling with like a kid that has social emotional issues or emerging mental health issues or whatever, and you're lost, I highly recommend looking up like the ARC model of care. Like you could even just have chat GPT break down the layman's version of what the ARC model of care is. Because it will break down, it's like a pyramid, and like it starts on the lower level with 4, then there's 3, then there's 2, then there's 1, and it really just breaks down how like a child's brain works, and also like how it's a caregiving model as well. So it breaks down like how do you respond to XYZ when XYZ is happening, or how do you respond to this and all this kind of stuff, and like how should your tone be, what should your affect be, like if you're completely lost, like have ChatGPT break down the ARC model of care in really basic, easy to understand and digestible blocks. Rachel and I have extensive training in it because we were trained in it, and it is
certified and trained in it. Yeah,
it can be really wordy if you go through the way that we went through it, but like again, ChatGPT works wonders. Have it break
Yeah.
it down into very simple to understand terms, and it'll be really helpful for anybody listening to this that's going through that right now.
I used to like to refer to it as the cheat sheet because it would literally almost list out the behavior and it would give you step by step how, like Corey said, your affect. So like how you approach it, your tone, your everything from A to Z. It breaks down the behavior, it tells you how to approach it and what the best therapeutic way to approach it is and what level it's on. So like if he's only like throwing something, okay, this is this, we're going to do it that way. That's a super important tool to have in your toolbox. And like Corey said, when we worked together, we were certified and trained in a lot of different things. And it almost gives you the ability to look at it from a perspective of not just how to identify behaviors, but also how to interact with the behaviors, approach it in a therapeutic way that is not, how do I say this, Core? It's not battling the behavior. It's not dismissing the behavior, but it's meeting the behavior on its level and how to reply to it.
100%. You're
therapeutically.
meeting it where it's at, but it's like a bird's eye view. It gives you like a bird's eye view of like sort of like any situation that you might find yourself in.
Yeah.
And it helps you break down like the thought processing. Like, so like one of the blocks is executive functioning.
Mhm.
Where are you at in this moment? Like whatever behavior you're seeing, like where is their executive functioning at? Now, again, for laymen, they might not know what executive functioning, and executive functioning is essentially, the processes his brains that everybody's brain goes through to reach a conclusion to any kind of issue, problem, whatever. It's an inherent system within our own brains.
And Angie, Christine, and Shai, you will all see that in evals. You'll see executive functioning mentioned in your evals, in your IEPs. Keep going. Sorry to cut you off, Core.
Yeah, no, and you'll have, again, like some of the other really important blocks are just like affect management in general, caregiver affect management.
Explain what affect is to them.
Affect is like how you present in the situation as a caregiver. So if Johnny is throwing rocks at the windows, are you coming at that and approaching that with like a normal person? How would a normal person react to that? Pretty fucking elevated. You're going to be like angry, anxious, but like if you're approaching it that way and you know that approach, like if that approach historically has not been responded to well by the child, you're going to continue, like it's not going to stop the behavior, right? So it's like really catching yourself in a moment of like taking a 10-second breath and saying, okay,
breaking that cycle. It's not easy, but it can be done. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Because like, we have the benefit of like being older and have gone through life and have like life experiences and know how to hopefully at this point in our lives regulate ourselves. And so when you can regulate yourself, it also is mirroring that for the child, and like especially in really high stress situations, because you don't want to be coming into it with your own anxieties and your own stresses, because that kid's going to feel that 1,000%.
They're going to mirror it. You're going to get mirrored.
Kids feel more than adults feel. Like everything you do body language wise, everything you do with your facial features, tone. I mean, the reality is that 70% of communication is body language, and kids are, a lot of times they don't know how to interpret it. And a lot of times they're going to interpret it in very simplistic terms. It's going to be one of two things, either happy or angry. Like,
happy,
those
mad,
are the
or
two
sad
easiest.
is what they used to tell me. Yep. Happy, mad, or sad.
It's the 2 or 3 easiest emotions to feel, and they're also the 2 or 3 easiest emotions to label. We also understand that emotion is a spectrum. Like there's a vast difference in emotions that we know as adults that we can say and put words to. These kids can't. And so if they're seeing you approach something in one way, you may not be intending it that way, but they're going to read it that way.
Yeah.
That's affect. Sorry.
It is so hard, like as adults now, unlearning behavior that we were taught as children. I find
our
myself
parents reacted that way.
my parents would get so angry so fast. So it was always a very tense environment. So I find myself being tense all the time. Um, and I have to dial it back and think before I react to my children.
Mm-hmm.
My
100%.
therapist taught me probably one of the best tricks in the book when my kids were little, which is think about blowing the balloon up. So it almost looks like you're sucking your thumb. You're supposed to take 5 breaths out and you raise up your fingers as you do, and then you let the balloon and deflate. So like you blow it up, count to 5, let it deflate. That gives you a 10-second pause, and you can't help but give the 10-second pause because you're putting your fingers up and you're busy before you react. That was my big thing growing up, is that, again, like Cheyenne, I was a kid of the 80s. I was raised completely different. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so like my biggest goal as a parent was to make sure that I approached my kids from a place of, I'd rather have this conversation with you and explain why I'm angry or upset with you than to be angry and upset with you. So like, again, we're learning how to cope at the same time our kids are learning to cope, and we're learning to do it different. You know what I mean?
And that's totally okay too. I want to keep reiterating that it's okay. It's all a learning curve for your children and
Uh-huh.
yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It just, the more you do it, the more practice, the more patience, the more everything, it'll get easier. I myself even am
Yeah.
having some struggles with it, but it will get there.
No,
Yeah.
you're gonna get there, and the more you mirror those things for your children, the more they're gonna pick up on it. Like, they're gonna pick
100%.
up on it, and they're gonna do it. Like, one of the things that, has been known to be helpful too, like, it's almost like Rachel said, it's a technique that you can use to, like, help yourself stop and slow down before you say something, and it's using your dominant hand. So whether you're right-handed or left-handed, and you take your arm and you cross it up to
Yep.
across your chest, right, over where your heart is, but you go to where your collarbone is, right, like on your body where your collarbone is, and you tap rhythmically
Yep.
for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however, whatever. But you
Yeah.
can
You're
also,
centering
while
yourself.
you're talking, what it is you're tricking your brain, because your
Mm-hmm.
brain is, we're all just lizard brains in the end. Like, you're tricking your brain into maintaining a state of like neutrality, because you're rhythmically tapping on a part of your body that, like, there's a pressure point there. There's all these kind of like weird
They
like
taught us all
Western.
kinds of crazy stuff.
Right, but like if you do that, like it's known to be very, very calming to you as somebody who is going to respond to a very stressful, like, you are stressed out because your children are experiencing something that is being very like they're exhibiting behaviors that are very stressful. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're doing that while you're also having the conversation, like, it's
De-escalate
going
it.
to prevent you from getting escalated to a point where you're really, really agitated, and then it just is counterproductive to what you're trying to do.
And you
I
can't
hope
help
I
but
described that correctly. I'm
you did,
sorry. Like,
Cora. Listen, our teacher would be very proud of us right now, Corey. So proud of
yeah.
us. And like, that's another thing with working in the company that we worked for. I will say that about them. They were amazing about the teaching and the certifications. They gave us a full toolbox because, you have to understand, we were walking into a group home setting with multiple preteens and teenagers, all that could, have traumatic past. They could have learning differences. It varied. It was a mix of different individuals. And they wanted to make sure in that program that we understood how to work with each individual as an individual. And I think I can almost like attribute a lot of my learning to them in that situation, and especially to the kids that we worked with. They taught me more than the adults did. I don't know about you, Cor, but you've probably learned a lot from the kids you've worked with. And it almost gave me the ability to learn positive reinforcements and to learn how to meet them where they're at and make sure I'm checking my affect. Like, they taught me all of those skills, and I'm forever grateful to that company for that, because it's skills that I've taken with me over the years with my own kids, with other people's children. Like, it's just so hard when you have those tools in your toolbox and you're trying to explain them, let's say, to people at the IEP table or to your kids' teachers, and they've never heard those concepts before. They've never even been trained and certified in that. And yet they're responsible for caring for your kids. And you almost get like frustrated. Like, how can you not understand this and have these practices available to you if you're working with the same children that I was working with? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's almost like frustrating to a level of like, you should be equipped with these same tools because they're what's going to enable you to do better. Right, Core? Am I wrong?
No, 100%. I think that this is the problem that we see, systemically,
Mm-hmm.
across the board is that, like, the way that these contracts work, that of the people that are coming in, like, to work with your children, um, they go to the lowest bidder.
Yep.
Like, and it's, you
And the one that
know
will comply with the school's wishes the quickest and the best.
right,
Let's
like,
be
and
honest.
that's
We've
we're
seen
not
it.
just talking specifically school too, we're talking about, like, any other in-home type service
Oh, yeah.
or whatever. It's like, these contracts go out every 5 to 10 years, and there's a bidding process, and there's, a lot of times they go to the lowest bidder, other times it goes to people that, like, will put in a bid that say they can do certain things, but they're not able to do those, so they overpromise and underdeliver. And it's kind of just it's a really, fucked up bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have hit or miss. Like, some agencies are incredible. Like,
Some schools are incredible. We saw
I'm
that
very
tonight.
some schools are incredible, and I'll say that, for a long time, the agency that I've worked for, they're a great agency. I love
Yeah.
working for them. Like, um, there are definitely things that I don't like about it, but there are significantly more positives than there are negatives.
Negatives. Yeah.
I have worked, you have to work collaboratively with other agencies all the time within what I
Mm-hmm.
do for a living, and providers from other agencies are very frustrating because their agencies don't have the standard of care
That
or the
we do.
standard of, like, training or the standard of whatever. And that can be really frustrating. And I think it's, as frustrating as it can be for me working with them, I'd imagine, as the person receiving services, like the parents and the children, um, that's even more frustrating for you guys than it is for me. But the best you can do is just continue to advocate for your kids. Like,
Yeah.
and if one service isn't working, if you guys ever get in a situation where you have these services in place and one's not working, say you need to change. You want something different. It's not
Yep.
working for you and your family. Like, it's just not doing it.
Your
If you
opinion
get a mentor
matters.
for your kid, if you get a whatever and they're not working, like, get a new one. I think people wait too long and they're too nice.
Yep.
And you have the right to request new services for your kids. Like, you know, it's like, I always say this is like, if you go to a new therapist, give that therapist 3 weeks. If you don't build a rapport with that therapist in 3 weeks, move the hell on. Like,
Break
there
up.
are
Yep.
100 other therapists, thousands of other therapists out there. You're gonna find the right one eventually. Like, you might waste a lot of, no, not waste, but you might go through a lot of time of, like, 3 weeks is one, "No, I don't like this person." 3 weeks of this one, "No, I don't like that person." 3 weeks of this next one, "I don't really like this person." But eventually you're gonna find one within, like, week 1, you're gonna be like, "Damn, I vibe with this person."
Yes. Thank you so much for joining me today. I think conversations like this are incredibly important because they remind us that every behavior has a story behind it, and every child deserves adults who are willing to understand that story before reacting. I hope today's conversation encourages parents to keep advocating, encourages professionals to keep learning, and reminds all of us that compassion, consistency, and curiosity can change a child's life. Thank you all so much for listening to Your Mutha podcast. If this episode resonated with you, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who could benefit from this conversation. We'll see you all next time.